Hello and welcome once again to Boom 11 Football Live. The World Cup is over, definitely, but we still have the Premier League, which is back and it is back with a bang, as was said by one of the commentators, because what a match we had to start it all off. And from then on, we've had some great, really enthralling fixtures. I have with me Abel once again. Abel, the Premier League is back, league football, the club football is back. How excited are you for the season now that the second half of the season has begun?
Firstly, good to be back here once again to be talking about it. But first and foremost, I have to say that it has started off with a bang. You have to say it's been one of the most traditional Premier League starts in terms of what you can get really showing what they can possibly do, especially when they've been a team who have come back from training positions time and time again this season. They've
Yeah.
not gone away. They started from where they left off prior to the World Cup break. So that's a huge positive for that team, because going away in Brentford has not been the most easiest thing, or playing against Brentford for a lot of top teams hasn't been easy through the course of the season. But the way in which they've dealt with it, they've been able to play, and there was a way in which they've been able to actually come back from being 2-0 down, and it's such a huge positive. We're talking about that. That's a Tottenham Hotspur's game, but otherwise, I think this season is off to a banger. I think we are going to see some big changes, because as you see, Arsenal are on top of the English Premier League table, but I think things will change quite quickly. There are other leagues which we'll also talk about next week, but then it's Premier League which has kick-started, so we will be particularly focusing on Premier League. But I'm pretty sure things are going to have a rapid turnaround as we get going into match day 2025, 22, 23, and all, because that's where the entirety of the dynamism changes in Europe. After the winter transfer window is always very exciting. New prospect,
Yeah.
injury, all these things do change how a team shapes up towards the latter half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As you rightly mentioned, because these teams have come back from the World Cup, the January transfer window is going to be so much exciting because a lot of World Cup talents are going to get recognition. Some huge changes that might come in. But let's start with the first match, as you have already mentioned, right? The match between Tottenham and Brentford. Tottenham were 2-0 down initially, and then they came back to draw the match. They would have hoped to get a much better result, obviously, but I know Tottenham has done well in terms of their comebacks. I think they've come back 14 times from a match where they were trailing to get some points. It's the most in the season, but they are giving away too many head starts, right? I mean, they are letting their opposition team take control of the game, and it so often seems like Tottenham's match really begins after they have conceded a goal.
Yeah, it does look like that at this point of stage. And if you look at the stats which I'm putting on the screen, if you look at that, you will understand that there were a lot of direct plays by Brentford through the course of that game. Brentford were the most attacking team, especially in the first half. If you have talked just on one half, I thought Tottenham was nowhere there in the picture, and that's been the case with Tottenham through the course of the season. If you remember in Leeds as well, they were down and they just came back winning 4-3. You see this on the Tottenham team time and time again, where they've been able to come back out of these big holes, big muds, and they've been able to come back with a lot of conviction, that they've been able to come back and they've been able to win games. But today it is always tough to come back away after being 2-0 down. And a situation like that against a defensively strong team like Brentford, I thought they did decently well. I can't say they were the best team in terms of coming back. Coming back is usually it's a tough thing. Let's give credit to Tottenham for that. They have come back after being 2-0 down. But at the same time, if you look in the first half, Harry Kane, for example, had least number of touches in the first half. He
Yeah.
had least number of touches, and even the both goalkeepers involved in it. So he was nowhere in the picture through the course of that game, especially the first 40-50 minutes. But then things took a turn around. You saw how that goal came. Longley just came in and put that cross in, and Harry Kane just was on the right position at the right time to get that goal in. So that's something which you see from Harry Kane time and time again. He can get into right positions and he can actually take the game away from you. That is a skill which only Harry Kane possesses, which I believe so. And that's a thing about a hallmark of a great striker, isn't it? You give him that space, you give him that right opportunity to put one in, he will do it more often than not. So that's why you have to give credit to Harry Kane for that. But to be talking about Brentford in particular, I thought the first goal was outstanding. They knew that they could get into right position and they could attack them and they could actually hurt Tottenham, especially when it comes to set pieces. And even once you're putting these aerial balls in, players like Yannick, players like Ivan Tony, they are extremely dangerous. I thought the second goal was just a defensive error from Tottenham. Eric Dyer was totally caught sleeping in that particular phase of play. That's where it came. But I'll have to be very honest. Tottenham did not look very convincing to me, though they got this draw. This could have well been a Brentford win. We have seen that time and time again. Brentford are a very good team, especially when they come up against a strong top five teams in the Premier League. Especially they had a very good game against City. Today could have been a possibility of winning 2-2 after that win they had against City. So it is something which you see from Brentford time and time again, that they can challenge the top tier teams. If you remember the first game of the season when they went against United, they absolutely dominated United in all phases of the game. And I personally think there's a lot more of Brentford. They are a team who are still on the climb. Maybe at the end of the season, or maybe by the start of the next season, they can be a team who you will see grow even more exponentially. This is just the beginning of which I think will be a huge change in Brentford. Because if you look, they came into Premier League last season. They came into Premier League with a bang where they started off winning against Arsenal, where they won 2-0. They announced themselves into Premier League after 74 odd years with a bang. After that, they've never looked back, to be very honest. They've had those moments where they've really gone on to dominate teams. They've gone on to do well against certain teams. But I think now, looking back at things, I think they will have a good run. They will have a better run than what they've had so far, and that's something which you all should be wary of. Especially especially the bigger teams. You can't take a team like Brentford lightly. For that example, you can't take any teams lightly, but especially a team like Brentford, because you know that a team like Brentford can hurt you when you don't even realize that is a mid-table, which I think is a huge achievement for a team who has just been promoted last season. I think they will only rise up from here on. I think they can easily come up to top 6, 7 by the end of next season, or maybe even in this season. If you look, they have 20 points. They are just 4 points away from being in the seventh position, being in the conference, like being in a European position there. They're just what, 1 point behind Chelsea. So you know how decent the season they've had in terms of getting those points, getting those crucial points from the big teams, rather than getting from the smaller teams from the bottom of the table. You're on the mute. You're on mute, Jared.
Talking about one player that really stands out in that team, in the Brentford team, that is Ivan Tony. He missed his flight to Qatar. He was not selected, and there was an amazing chant that was heard around the Brentford ground, which is Harry Kane missed the penalty, but Ivan Tony would have hit the mark if it had been him taking it. But how do you reckon him? And today he did show, right? He is a class of a striker. In fact, he almost had a third goal in, if not for that offside call. He was slightly, I think he had taken one step too early, and unfortunately that got ruled out as an offside goal. But he could have almost done it for Brentford today against Tottenham again. Very pacey striker. He's quick to break those lines and get the ball. And he's become a target man really for Brentford, isn't it? And he's been great. I think he scored 9 goals in the last 10 matches now.
Yeah, he scored 9 goals in 10 matches, and he's been in outstanding form. But then, the unfortunate part about all this is he could possibly be banned for 4 months after the appeal hearing, which will be done, because he was already charged of betting charges. Now he's
Yeah.
been there. He has a leeway. He has a small leeway of a gap after his hearing. I think, which is almost very clear that he will be charged for betting, which means he'll get a 4 month ban starting from January. Maybe that's going to be a huge miss for this team. This guy has been a menace up front for any defensive units to contain, because the way in which he makes those runs, the way in which he gets in position, his direct runs have been outstanding. He's pacey. He's very, very comfortable in finishing. He doesn't miss a lot of chances, and Brentford fans aren't wrong in sense. If you give him the opportunity, he will finish it 9 out of 10 times, and that's the kind of season he's been having. You see Brentford in the ninth position. It's all thanks to Ivan Tony. Ivan Tony has been having an outstanding season up front as a striker. You dream to have seasons like this as a striker, especially as a number 9 in Premier League, and he's been having that with Brentford. I think a lot of teams now, a lot of big Premier League teams will look to eye on Ivan Tony, provided that everything off the field goes right for him, because at this point, off the field scandals haven't been treating him so right. Hence, that World Cup exclusion also is kind of justified. because now what? He could possibly be banned for 4 months. Brentford could be on a search for another striker to replace Ivan Toney for that brief period, and that's going to really hurt a team like Brentford. I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, true, because he's had that kind of a season. He's been really an important player when it comes to them. Their standing, the Brentford standing in the Premier League. But even today, you felt like, I mean, today obviously many teams in fact came out with a team which did not have a lot of their World Cup stars. But Tottenham in particular did not have a great defensive line. Right? Eric Dyer was probably the most experienced. Clement Longley as well, but one particular player that I felt, made a lot of mistakes in that box where Brentford were a bit unlucky to not really, capitalize on. It was
Tanga.
Tanganga, and I felt, he's just 1 year elder. I mean, he's just few months elder to me, but still a Premier League player, defender, and I know high pressure game. Obviously, he's getting his opportunity only because some of the stars are not there. Another player was obviously Foster in the goal. Again, you felt
Yeah.
like he made it, especially the first goal. You felt after that goal could have been prevented because it was a rebound. You could have done a lot better. So, do you reckon what we saw from Tottenham today was a little bit a reflection on the lack of their depth?
Possibly, yes, it is. It is one factor which you need to consider with the Tottenham team, especially in certain areas. If you talk about defensive line, Coutinho Romero is not there, right? He's one of the premier defender. He's missing out because after the Argentinian World Cup success, he's not there. It's going to take a time. It's going to take a while that he joins back. But to be very fair on the Tottenham team, depth is a huge issue for them. Now, if you look at their team, they've got players, but they do not have the right players maybe to actually replace every time they go and play against teams in the Premier League, because Premier League can be a very challenging competition, right? It can really put you under test time and time again. They have players to play as wing backs, because that's one area which they really filled up for the season. But if I have to talk about defensive areas, especially centre back, they went for Davinson Sanchez in the second half. I still
Yeah.
don't think Davinson Sanchez or even Eric Dyer or Chonganga are up there, to be really doing a job. Ben Davis comes there and plays a left centre back if need be. But they,
I mean,
if you have to tell about, if you have to
it
talk
was
about a Premier
amusing to
League
me,
top four
that
team,
Eric Dyer. Well, Eric Dyer is the one who made that mistake, right, which led to the corner and then to the subsequent goal. So it was odd to me because he was one that Antonio Conte would have relied upon to really hold the defense together. But it seemed even he did not
yeah.
have a great day out today.
He did not. He did not. That's the whole point. He did not have a
Yeah.
great day. Neither Longley, though in attacking phases towards second half, while making the attacking transition, Longley was getting a lot more involved. He was, as Perisic was pushing up the field, getting to wider regions. Longley was getting into that midfield position. He was providing that. He was also, getting upfield, and he was able to put those crosses in. If I'm talking about Hoiberg, his defensive support also was very minimalistic in today's game, especially in transitions where Ivan Toney, Mbeumo, they were all when they were attacking them, they were found wanting. Especially Janssen, they were, midfield wasn't being able to be contained by Hoiberg or Bissouma in today's game. That was another reason why you saw Tottenham losing balls in crucial positions, especially in their own half, losing balls to Brentford, which resulted in a lot of counterattacks. There was also an offside goal from Ivan Toney, which was ruled off, which I thought could have gone the other way. It was just Ivan Toney was slightly desperate in making those runs. Even if you'd have waited
Yeah.
one second, or that could have also been a goal. So that's what my point is. Even as a defense, even as a midfield defensive unit, they were lacking on a lot of fronts. But if I talk about that depth, I really don't see them having that depth to compete in three competitions at the same time. Now, if you talk about Champions League, they are into the next round as well. I'm not sure if there's a lot of emphasis on this team to make it to the Champions League deep. The more emphasis will be that they finish top four for the next season, so that they can get a lot more additions into the squad. At this point, they look like a team who can finish in the top four, provided they don't do this more often. They will not be able to make comebacks more often like this against quality teams. When they're going to be up against a Manchester City, when they're going to be up against a Newcastle, even against Manchester United, they are going to be struggling a lot more. Though they've had results going their way so far in the tournament, they only had 4 losses in the league so far. They've had 30 points in the top four, but when things don't go your way, things it can look very, very bad very quickly.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, if things are not going your way, things might look really bad. And let's talk about the next match that happened. Right, it was Leicester City versus Newcastle, and it is seeming like things are getting worse to worse for Brendan Rodgers and Leicester City. On the other hand, you're seeing Newcastle's rise and a meteoric rise ever since that investment came in from this Saudi Crown Prince and the Public Investment Fund. They are looking really, really good. Eddie Howe has done a great job there. Brendan Rodgers, a celebrated Premier League manager, has not seen these kinds of lows, right? And it was obvious this was coming. It was something which anyone would have predicted. You lost Wesley Fofana, Kasper Schmeichel, Hamza Chaudhry in your transfer window, and you never really found replacements for them. Tried to promote Danny Ward as your top goalkeeper, but I don't think he's doing the job enough. And even the defense is looking really shattered. But the one thing that really is a big headache for Brendan Rodgers is set pieces. They cannot defend
Yes.
set pieces anymore, Leicester City.
They are unable to do it. That's one of the reasons why, even if you talk about Amarte or if you talk about Fires, they do not have the physicality to defend set pieces. If I talk about just on their defensive gameplay, I think they're lacking behind in a lot of fronts. They are confused in terms of what they should be doing. See, it's very hard to really replace players like Wesley Fofana or even someone like Kasper Schmeichel, because Kasper Schmeichel in the goal was a different beast altogether. He could step up in these
Yeah.
moments, but just not that. If you talk about Yuri Tillemans as well, he's had a very, very mediocre season this time around. He's had a very poor
Correct.
season in terms of how he has really come up. Even if you look at today's game, they might have been a team who had a lot more possession. They were looking a lot more comfortable on the ball, but then in defensive transition, in terms of conceding goals, making those defensive errors, especially in set pieces, it's not just good enough. But on the flip side of things, if things go like this, Newcastle are making it to the top four. They're already second in the table. I know they played 2 games more than City and Arsenal, but barring that, they've had a very, very good season. You didn't mention about how the Saudi group's influence has been there. I really don't think Saudi group has got any influence in the kind of team. Though they've got a very decent team, they've got more Gemerish, they've gotten players like Trippier, but ultimately, if you look at the team, what they've had so far, it's been a very, very mediocre team, but that team has been made to look very good under Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe has really turned around this team in just the kind of way he wants to
Yeah.
play out. There's a lot of grit in this team. There's a lot of belief. The way in which this team has been operating together as a unit is fantastic to see. I mean, outstanding way in which they like to press. They press you, especially when they went up against a team like Manchester City. I remember they should have possibly won that game. They were very unlucky that
Yeah.
Manchester City came. It was just sheer class of Manchester City which came to take a draw from that game. But the fact is that the way in which they were not afraid to press a team like City, the way in which they were up against top teams and they were pressing them. I know they lost to Liverpool, which I thought was very surprising. I think that's the only loss they've had the entire season so far. But barring that, they've had an outstanding season. They've had a season to remember. I think if they go in this form, I bet they'll play Champions League football after 16 long years or something like that, or not, or 19 long years rather. So it's something which is coming their way, and I think they deserve it. They deserve every piece of it. And I have to mention a special player. It is none other than Almiron. He's had a
Yeah.
fantastic season so far. He has been outstanding. I have graphs to compare his 2022 season, 2021-22 season with 2022-23 season, because I think that only justifies how exponential he has been. I'll pull up a graph right now of Almiron. If you look at Miguel Almiron's season, this was 21-29, this was 18-19 to 2021-22. That was what it was, the 2 seasons in put together. How he was. He had an XG shot percentage of 0.10. He had 140 shots within the box, 9 goals. That's all what he had. Now, if you look at this, now if you look at if you look at this one, it's this season, just this season. He already has got 9 shots. He had an XG of 0.13, 38 shots in 16 games. He has been the player for them. He's been outstanding for them. in terms of creativity, in terms of getting into right positions. He's been one of the best players for them. I'm actually envious that a team like Newcastle has a talent like him. He's just so good. I mean, he's been outstanding so far this season in terms of the way he has played. He's really been fitting into that system. He's really been feeding balls, even to a player like Wood. I thought for me personally, when Isak came into this team, I thought Isak is going to solve a lot of issues. But then the fact that Isak is right now injured, but then the way in which Almiron has stepped up playing in the right winger's role has been outstanding. But at the same time, I'll also give credit to Bruno Guimaraes. Bruno Guimaraes in this team was a missing piece they needed for the longest period of time. They had John Joe Shelby, they had Longstaff brothers, but the fact that when Bruno Guimaraes came into this team, he brought in that defensive circle, that control in the midfield. They look a lot more comfortable, especially in terms of their movement up front, in terms of the way in which they progress the ball upfield. That's one factor. All thanks to Bruno Guimaraes. Bruno Guimaraes control he has had on the game, the way in which he makes those defensive interceptions, the way in which he controls the play. Also, another player I like to also mention is Willock. Willock has also been a very, very crucial factor in Newcastle's success, alongside Joe Linton as well. So they've really come together as a team when it mattered the most. Now, the way in which they're positioned in the table, they're destined for good things. I think there'll
Yeah.
be a lot more addition to the squad come the January transfer window. I'm expecting at least two more additions into the squad, at least one more striker by. I know they bought Isak for a good 40 million, one of the biggest signings in the club history. But now, come the latter half of the season, I think they'll have a couple more additions. Now, money is not a huge problem for this team. It's a Saudi group who has taken it over last season. I don't think they'll have the same issues to invest in players, though they don't splurge a lot like a Manchester City or a Manchester United or any of the other teams, but they've been splurging money in the right moment for the right players who are fitting into the system. And Eddie Howe, I'll tip my hats off to him. For him to come in, he's not been the most prolific manager. He does not come with a huge profile. The way in which he's managed his team, the way in which he's embedded the philosophy, I think it's been outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Abel, you're right to say that because right now, as of today's match between Leicester and Newcastle, which ended 3-0 after three first half goals, and they're right now second in place. Of course, Man City has one more match to play in this round of fixtures, but you have to give credits to them because now you have Newcastle, which is sitting in the second spot, and it is not something anyone would have expected at the start of the tournament. Obviously, everyone had high hopes from Newcastle, but to be at a second spot in the Premier League and possibly third spot if Man City does go on to win, that is still exceptional from this team. This team hasn't. I mean, if you just look at the way they've been positioned on the table, they've played 9 matches, and I mean, they played 16 matches and have only lost one match. And match that they've lost is what is the defeat that they had against Man City, if I'm not wrong, Abel. Since
No,
then,
it
they have
was
not
against
been
Liverpool.
beaten.
It was against Liverpool. They did not lose
Liverpool,
to Manchester
sorry, rather.
City.
It was against
Manchester.
Liverpool. And that was the only match that they have lost. Aside from that, 16 matches, not even not even more than one loss. It's just only Arsenal, I think, who's done that. So that's incredible from their end. But Abel, one last final thought on Brendan Rodgers and his future at this club now, because it is under a lot of scrutiny. Only one player that seems to be rising above the rest is Madison. He's obviously, not there in this team right now due to his World Cup stress and the kind of, the kind of efforts he had being part of the English team. But I mean, you
What
have to
efforts do you have? He
really
not even
give.
get to play a single game. So I really don't understand what is the stress he's going through. I'm
Maybe
very
it's
honest.
training.
I'm a little baffled by that particular exclusion because if Harry Kane played today, I don't even know
Yeah.
what is the issue with the player like Madison would not get a single minute in Qatar. So
Or do you reckon he's
it's
talking to the agent
I
about
think I
January
personally think
transfer
he's
window?
suffering from an injury. I'm not pretty sure about that, Madison, but
Hmm.
Madison is such an important factor to this squad. I think Madison will be on his way out of this club very, very soon. I think he's too good a player to be playing for a team who's on a downslide. When we talk about
Yeah.
Leicester City, remember they won a league 7 years ago. Apart from Chelsea and Manchester City and Liverpool, the only team who has won a league in the last decade or so is Leicester City. So that's one factor which you need to keep in consideration when you talk about Leicester
But I
City.
mean,
They won
since
the FA Cup
then, people,
one season ago.
all the players who won them the league are gone. Conte is gone. Mahrez is gone.
That is a factor. That's a
Schmeichel is
factor. But
gone.
I understand,
Yeah,
when they could have possibly had another huge investment and to grow from there. But having that loss also Vichai, when Vichai passed away due to a helicopter crash, that really shook the
yeah.
ownership in Thailand back there. He just they couldn't really build on from there, which also meant they had to get out a lot of players. Let's not talk about that class of 2015 where they had Kante, Mahrez, Vardy. They were all in the prime. So they all have gone on to become some great Premier League players, have won now multiple titles and Champions Leagues now if you look beyond it. But the fact is that Leicester City are on a downside. They've not really gotten to build. They've got some really good players. For example, Yuri Tillemans is a fantastic player. He could have been a much better player, but he's on a stagnated role at this point. He's not been able to grow. He's not been able to put those performances, which is going to take you like, wow. If you talk about 2020, 2020 season, I really thought Yuri Tillemans would, at this point of time, be a midfielder who would at least have a 70 million price tag or 80 million price tag, because that's a possible talent this dude carried. But I don't know what happened. There's been a clear stagnation in his development. But on the flip side of things, if you're talking Madison, I think he's a huge prospect. I mean, he's already developed player. The fact is that he
Yeah.
could go on to play for a bigger club. Maybe a team like United or maybe a team like Chelsea would really want a player like Madison, or he could be also on his way out of English Premier League to some other region as well, because you see the talent in him. There's something special about this lad. He could come into a game and actually do a lot more creativity. The fact is that he plays in a role which a lot of teams do not need. He plays in number 10. It does not give you a lot of defensive work rate as well compared to a lot of other number 8, because number 10 is a position which has gone out of trend now. If you talk about Hammers, if you talk about a lot of players, Isco, a lot of players have struggled over the last 3 to 4 years because of the fact that they don't get to do a lot of defensive work rate there, right? So that's what my point is. Madison will be preferred by a lot more teams. I think even Manchester City, for example, will have an eye on Madison because Bernardo Silva will be going or Gundogan will be leaving the club. So a lot of teams like this will be eyeing on a player who's much more comfortable on the ball, who can really give you this, create those plays which can really decide a game, and he's got that ability to do that. So you've seen that from him time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly mentioned, because now, especially, this Leicester City, how the way they've been performing, it is not going to inspire a lot of confidence in their best players, and they would all want to leave, go somewhere better. Yuri Tillemans would be kicking himself for not taking the Arsenal, because there was a lot of rumor about him going to Arsenal. That did not work out. He would be kicking himself if there was an offer on the table for not taking it. But let's move on then, Abel. We obviously spoke about this match at length, but let's look at the next match right up there, which is Brighton and Hove Albion versus Southampton, where again, Brighton and Hove Albion, another team which has really been raking up the news, a smaller team which has been doing really well. They have had a change of manager now that Graham Potter has shifted his shade of blue and is a Chelsea manager. But still, they don't seem to have lost any steam. They just seem to be going on full roll.
I mean, I love the way how Roberto De Zerbi just came in and changed, just took over from where Graham Potter left off. This team has extreme amount of talent. Let's all be very honest. This team can really change things around in Premier League. You already seen how they've gone up against some quality teams, right? They've got a football they played. Remember, they've defeated the Graham Potter's team, what, 4-0, if I remember. So
Yeah.
they've already had a great time in the Premier League so far in terms of the way they've played the games. And I love the fact, that they've got some crazy amount of talent as well. I really see this team finishing in the top 6, top 7 at least for the season, because of the fact that they've got the players. They've got players for example, someone like what Alexis McAllister, for example. He's been such a vital part of this team. He's now also a World Cup winner. He has such an influence in the World Cup run of Argentina. So you know what this team can possibly bring on the table. If you give them that freedom to play the way they want, they can really hurt you in different way. For example, Trossard. Trossard has been one of my favorite players to watch the entire season for this team, especially against top teams, right? Trossard has stepped up. I remember the game against Liverpool, where again I think he
Yeah.
scored a hat trick. Trossard scored a hat trick against
Yeah, yeah,
Liverpool, if
yeah.
I remember. He did score a hat trick. So uh, See, that's what you get, right? For with Brighton, they're a very exciting team, and today Groff, he was outstanding today. And Casero and Groff playing in the midfield was outstanding. Also, March, I love the way how he plays, man. I love the way how he plays. And Welbeck, I know people talk a lot of bad things about Welbeck, but I personally like the way how he's fitted into the system. I think he's got something about him. He's got something about him which is really working. And now having someone like Estopinian also in your team as a left back, I think he's a fantastic buy. He also plays for Ecuador alongside Casado. So there's a lot of link up there. And the way in which he actually moves up front, right? The way in which Estupinian moves up front. Estupinian is a backup who they have brought in for Kukurea. I know selling out someone like a Kukurea is a huge loss for you. But at the same time, you got enough money to buy someone like Estupinian. I was very impressed with Estupinian when he played for Villarreal in the last season. Especially in games he could come in and bombard up front because he's so much more comfortable on the ball to go up front, put in those crosses up, and that's where a team like Brighton becomes even more scarier. In the transitions on the ball, they're very comfortable. They prefer playing with the ball. One of the very few Premier League teams who are extremely comfortable on the ball, and that's a change which you have seen in Premier League over the last 5 years or so. A lot of teams want to play a lot more on the ball. They want to actually progress up front, press a lot more. So Brighton is a team who plays impressive football as well. It's just not the results they've been able to churn out. They play impressive football to churn out those results. Even like Roberto Zerbi, they've been playing that impressive brand of football, which is very good to see.
Yeah, I mean, again, another team who's done so well in the Premier League this time around. Right now, after the match today, they are sitting up at top. I mean, not exactly the top of the table, you would say, but at a position that they'll be really proud of in the seventh spot. That is, if Liverpool right now. Just an update, guys. Liverpool versus Aston Villa match is going on as we speak, and Ollie Watkins has just scored one goal in the 59th minute for Aston Villa. But it as it stands right now, if this match ends as it stands right now, Brighton would be seventh with 24 points, and if not so, I think they will be sixth if I'm not wrong. So that is how things are for Brighton. But let's talk about the match that's going on right now, Abel. Before we get to the end
Yeah.
of the live, but it is Liverpool versus Aston Villa. Aston Villa is another team which has looked on and off, and today they had a lot of chances. Really, if you really have to
Aston
say
Villa has
that,
put Liverpool under extreme amount of pressure today.
yeah,
They've been very comfortable on the ball as well. If you look at it now, if you look, they sacked Gerrard for a reason, and I know under the new manager they expected to come back pretty hard, and they've done pretty well so far. I know they're trailing at this point, but then the fact is that if they're able to capitalize, I know chances will come their way, and if they're able to capitalize at least one of their due chance, I'm pretty sure they'll be able to come back pretty well into the game. Remember, Unai Emery is a very decent manager, right? You know what the kind of
yeah,
reputation he carries. The way in which, if you remember, in the Champions League semi-final, Unai Emery did almost make a comeback with Villarreal against Liverpool as well. So he knows a thing or two about Liverpool. He knows the way in which how to make comeback against Liverpool as well. So don't write Aston Villa off. We have already to 70 minutes of the game, but still, I still think there will be opportunities, especially Bailey up front. He missed a couple of opportunities there. And for Liverpool, I have to be very honest, Darwin Nunes has been very shady for me, especially through the
he's been
course of the season.
horrendous
He's been
today.
basically, yeah,
He's
they
had
had to
so
go back
many
from like,
chances. Able, it's almost as if I think there was a meme that I was going through Twitter today, and it was almost as if he's blind in front of the goal because he missed a ton of opportunities. You have to give credit to him. He is making a lot of runs into the defensive box. He's breaking Konsa and Mings the defense. Young and especially Digne is a lot worried. I mean, sorry, not Digne, but rather Young and Konsa have been very worried because they've been time and time getting beaten by pace. But then in front of goal, that's what he's really there for, isn't it? At the end of the day, he is playing a number nine position, even though he doesn't wear number nine on his shirt.
yeah.
He's playing that position, and you want him to score goals, but he's not looked comfortable on the goal. He's got a lot of chances. They should have been actually 3-0 for sure ahead right now.
They should have been. They should. Both the teams have had their chances, fair share of chances. I think this could have possibly been a 3-all game. at this point, because that's a kind of, it's been end to end football, right? It's just not been
Yeah.
Liverpool completely dominating or Aston Villa completely getting dominated by Liverpool. It's been end to end football. That's why the chances have come in both the ways as well. I still think there will be enough chances coming their way as well. Now, if we talk about the last hour, I think last 30 minutes, I personally think there will be one or two chances which will come Aston Villa's way as well. If Aston Villa is able to grab those chances, I think it's gonna be a good finish to this game of football. But to be very honest, at this point, Liverpool are hanging by a thread in terms of their seasonal hopes,
Yeah.
because if you look, Jota is out till February, Lewis is out till March, and Firmino is out till January mid as well. So they do not have a lot of options up front as well. If you're talking about Darwin Nunes, who do you replace him with? Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is playing in the forward line today. He's playing as a left winger in today's game. So you can just imagine the kind of depth. They do not have any more players. You sold Minamino to Monaco at the start of the season. You do not have a player to come in and actually, you don't have a Mane. So you do not have a player to come in and actually making a lot of difference. The only hopes you had was Jota, Firmino, and Lewis. They are out injured as well. So it is hard times for Liverpool. So they'll desperately need this win to actually stay in hopes to make it to the top six or top four for the next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talk me through, a player like Darwin Nunes, right? He's shown a lot of flashes in the pan, you would say, where he suddenly looked an amazing, unplayable player, but he's really turning out to be the Liverpool version of Timo Werner. Or worse yet, I remember there was a Man City match where the Etihad Stadium was chanting, "You're just a shitty Andy Carroll." You reckon
Well, I
that's
still
like
think
the
Darwin Núñez has a lot more to prove, and I still think that he is going to have a very good career in Liverpool. It's his first season, and if you look at his stats, he's had a decent season. It's not because you've been comparing him with Haaland, and the parameters
Yeah,
set against image of Haaland. It's very tough for a player like Darwin Núñez to come out of it and actually come out and perform in a way you are expecting him to perform. So I personally think Darwin Núñez, you can judge him at the end of the season as to how he's going to perform in the Premier League and also in the Champions League. Now, a game against Real Madrid in the Champions League is going to be so much more important. The pressure, the stakes are going to be high. But in the Premier League, especially now, in absence of some for like Luis Firmino, you have a role to do, and this is the opportunity for you to really step up. Now you have a game in your hand as well. You have a game right now to go out there and seal the winner for Liverpool and actually make them feel a lot more comfortable. But if you look beyond it, I personally think Darwin Nunes has a lot of areas to improve in. I don't think a player will miss his finishing boots. It's not something technical. It's not something where he's getting beaten off
yeah.
physically or with the demands of the English game. It's just a finishing boots which is missing for him, which I think you can. It's just a lack of form. It's a lack of confidence in front of the goal. I think you can regain it once you pin 2 or 3 goals in a match. I think that you will regain form very quickly. And that was a very similar thing with Timo Werner as well. But the fact is that I think he's a much better player than Timo Werner because he gives you a lot more dynamism. I think even Timo Werner, he was not used ideally by Chelsea. That's what I feel.
One final thought then on Andy Robertson, now who's become the highest ever a defender with the highest ever assists. He assisted today as well, the Mo Salah goal. How important has he become for Liverpool, especially given the fact that most of the team, like if you really think about it, this Liverpool team has been struggling because of the players, the old guard kind of getting older and older, and not really the new guard. The new guard not really stepping up. The kind of transition period you would say Liverpool is in
Yeah.
many ways. So you reckon how important is Andy Robertson now to this team and for the future that this team has now?
Massive. For me personally, I've always rated Andy Robertson ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold because of what he provides to defensively as well. In attacking transition, has always been outstanding, but in defensive recoveries and making tracking back and coming back in terms of defensive transitions, he's been outstanding as a player. He's always been a top notch. I still feel he's one of the best left backs out there. People tell about Cancelo being one of the best left backs or one of the best wing backs. I think Andy Robertson should be one or two in that list because the kind of defensive work he gives you, the kind of creativity he gives you, especially up front in terms of him trying to create chances for Salah, Mane over the years with Firmino, he's an outstanding left back. And today, or once again, he's just gone out there and had a game which he usually had. It's a normal day at the office for Andy Robertson as a player. I personally enjoy him watching, and as a City fan, I really dread when Andy Robertson makes those runs in. His run, as you know, that his crosses are pinpoint, and the balls he puts inside the box are very threatening, even more than Trent Alexander-Arnold. With Trent Alexander-Arnold, you always know there's a weakness in counters. You can expose Trent Alexander-Arnold a lot more. That's where a player like Cancelo usually keeps Trent Alexander-Arnold far more quiet. But Andy Robertson is a menace up front, especially if you're trying to give him that space to run in.
Andy Robertson now has scored 54 assists in comparison to Leighton Baines, who's got 53. So now he is the highest. He's a defender with the highest assists. Abel,
Yeah.
the next match is going to be. We are gonna see Arsenal back in action. They finished before the World Cup break. They finished top of the table, and as far as I remember, so only Liverpool. This is an interesting stat here. Is that Liverpool is the only team able that has in the history of Premier League lost out on a Premier League title after finishing first in December. So, do you reckon Arsenal finally will end their drought of trophies?
Arsenal might because of two reasons. They can because of the kind of start they've had, because of the point difference they have at this point with City. At the same time, I still think it's going to be hard, because if you're talking about the latter half of the season, especially now the final end of the season, right? Now we know Gabriel Jesus also part of this team, and now you're going to see a lot more injuries take place, because the intensity of the season is going to really step up from here on. Now, for Arsenal to keep that up with the squad depth they've got, it's going to be really tough. That because they're going to
Yeah.
be competing against City, who's going to be on the rise. You already saw what City can do. They came up against Liverpool. They were on their game, they had their A game on. That's something which you should be wary of. And City are really wanting it to go out there and prove a point. They did not have the best of the first half. They still are second on the table, but they'll be slightly more disappointed with Haaland. They are 5 points behind the top team, so that's going to be hurting them slightly more. But now they're going to see you're going to see a far more dangerous City, and at the same time, teams like United, teams like Tottenham, teams like Liverpool, they all are going to press the accelerator. So the challenge is going to be far more dangerous for Arsenal compared to the first half. And now it's about how they finish off. And today's game against West Ham are on a decline, so this is the best time to possibly play West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, let's talking about that. Even West Ham, Everton, two teams who are really in trouble. Everton under Frank Lampard might just face relegation. West Ham under David Moyes, also very close to that threat. Now, Everton has lost today. Everton lost 2-1 to against Wolves, which is another story. We will speak about that as well. But these two teams are Premier League regulars, and do you reckon one of them finally, and Everton just barely avoided relegation last time around, do you
I
reckon one
mean,
of them
Everton could have been
finally is
relegated
going to go
last
to
time around, to
EPL?
be very fair. They've not really improved anything. They've got nothing to really improve on. I thought one season where they really had a good run was under Carlo Ancelotti, but after that, they've
Yeah.
really lost their paths. It's also because the quality of the manager like Carlo Ancelotti is that he'll make a bad team look far decent in the Premier League, with James Rodriguez also stepping up. Either that season with Drogore, everybody they had a decent season, but since then they've looked extremely inconsistent. The kind of football they played as well, it doesn't give you any confidence that they can get any points of any game. So even losing out today, I think it's just bad time for them, for Everton. But we're talking about West Ham as well. I think West Ham is also on a decline. Hence, I see a player like Declan Rice also making a move out of West Ham very soon, because West Ham is not going to give you any assurity at this point, because they're not playing good football. The whole point is they're not playing good football, which can give you any assurity. If you have to compete in a league like Premier League at this point, even to stay in top 17, for example, without getting relegated, you have to play decent football. You have to compete against top tier teams. You have to compete in the mid-table teams, because it's become far more competitive compared to last 5 years. Before, you could actually play mediocre football or bad football and get away from a relegation spot. You could end up being 16th and you could feel a lot more comfortable. But now, at this point of stage in the Premier League, with the quality of teams in the mid-table and the kind of competition which you have within 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, it is very tough. Hence, I believe it's going to be far more tougher for a team like Everton, and even for West Ham. West Ham, I still think they have the quality in them to really surpass and actually save themselves from getting relegated. But for Everton, it looks very bleak at this time for me.
Yeah. Another story that's coming out of the Premier League now, Abel, is the Wolves story from Wolves, where the Wolves manager Lopetegui has finally become. I think for a long time now, Wolves managers haven't won their first match. He's become the first manager in a long time. I don't exactly know the amount of time it's been passed, but it is definitely not this century. And it's been a long time coming, but now finally under Julian Lopetegui, how do you think this Wolves team is going to perform? Because they've had a
I mean, I
falling out
can't
as
really
well.
judge from one game, Jaren, to be very honest. It's still early days. They had a decent win today
Of
against
course.
Everton. I think that's going to help them a lot for them to get that to get that win over the line. But for me, I think the toughest challenge for someone like Lopetegui will come in the next games ahead. That's where the real challenge is going to be for someone like Julian Lopetegui. He's a celebrated manager. He is a manager with a lot of experience. He has done it in the big stage time and time again. Today to get the last minute winner from Ainori, I thought that was lucky in one sense or the other, but I don't think it'll come your way all the time. But way better for them. They are a relegation spot at this point. For them to get that win in
Again,
itself
that's
is
the
a
thing.
huge, huge deal. I think that's
Yeah.
going to help them to move ahead. Personally speaking, I'll say you have to judge them after like at least 3 to 4 games. First win is always nice, and especially you came up against a team who's also on a decline. You not come up against a decent looking team. So when you compare to the two worst teams, you just edge past better.
Yeah, I mean, the next match is going to be the biggest. It's going to be a great challenge for Lopetegui because they're going to face Manchester United at home, yes, but not going to be easy to face Manchester United anywhere.
Yeah,
But that is a little while later on. But as it stands today, even now, obviously, we've covered most of the stories coming
yeah.
out. But moving forward now, tomorrow,
I
you
think
want to
we'll
target
talk about
tomorrow?
tomorrow in tomorrow's live. That's better. So
All right, let's take a few
that's about
comments
it.
before we end the live, Abel.
Yeah.
First of all, Saloni loves your hairstyle. And Priyanka says that she's kept Ivan Tony. I think she wanted to say Tony instead of Toby, but Ivan Tony as fantasy captain because this guy is absolute fire. Yes, absolutely. I think he probably ended up burning. He probably ended up burning the team that he faced today against. It was wait, I already forgot who they faced. Who was it, Abel?
It's Tottenham Hotspurs.
Yes, Tottenham Hotspurs, and
Tottenham.
even Tony was too hot to handle for them. But
Tottenham.
great job by him today. Helga Furious says, "I hope Newcastle wins the league." That's gonna be tough. It's gonna be very tough, but it'll be great, great story. Another club with oil money winning the Premier League. It's just gonna be huge. But I think this time around, or at least this season around, that does not kick in as soon as investment comes in because of the financial fair play rules that a team like maybe Manchester City did not have to deal with initially. Carlo Fernandez, I think, supports the same idea of Forza Newcastle. He says. Azhar says thoughts on Jude Bellingham to English Premier League. Now he is a hot, hot property, right, in English football. Liverpool is probably one team that really wants him. Manchester United really wants him. There are rumors that Real Madrid has already placed a 60 million offer to Borussia Dortmund, and so many teams want Jude Bellingham. Probably the most, what is it, the biggest name in English football right now. Do you reckon he's come to English Premier League, or do you reckon Real Madrid will get what they want?
I personally think it's gonna be really hard to decide at this point because with the fact that there are a lot of teams behind him, like so United, City also will need him at some stage because I think Bernardo Silva and Gundogan are on their way out, so they'll need someone to come in and lay that impetus in the midfield and to actually start a new generation and to invest in the future. That someone like Jude Bellingham and with the connection he has with Phil Foden and Haaland, there's a possibility that he could come to Manchester City. But Liverpool are one of the favorites to sign him at this point because they showed a lot of interest in signing him. But the issue is, are with the FSG group and the ownership takeover, will Liverpool be able to afford him, or are Liverpool even looking to handle to sign a big signing like Jude Bellingham? I think it's going to cost you 100 mil. Maybe if you're signing him in the summer, and that's fair deal because with this World Cup performance as well, his market value is definitely shot up twofold by now. Uh, on the other side, I think Real Madrid are a team who are looking to sign Jude Bellingham as well. considering the fact that Luka Modric is also on his way out. Maybe it's like last 1 or 2 seasons with Luka Modric. They also have to look in the future. With Chouameni and Kamavinga, they need a player to also support that and to play the number 8 role, to play that advanced midfielder role in Real Madrid. And Real Madrid have always been a team who has invested in young players. They are now on a surge to invest in the next generation. And that's the vision of Florentino Perez as well. So you know with Florentino Perez, you'll get that he's going to invest in young talent time and time again. He's going to bring those new blood into the team to actually take the team's vision ahead as well. So I'm not surprised the way in which Real Madrid are also looking at him, but it's going to be very tough to decide at this point. To be very honest, where is he going to go? You're on mute.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, update from Aston Villa versus Liverpool match. There has been a third goal which has been scored by Stefan. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce his last name. Probably learned as a homework for the next game. But he scored the third goal. That means I think now Liverpool are out of Aston Villa's reach, and they might finish this game with all 3 points in their kitty. But a long way to go for Liverpool, you would say. But that's all from us for today. It's been a great live once again. We will be trying to come back to you on a regular basis with football. English Premier League, obviously, has just kicked off after the World Cup break. We'll also be covering La Liga and League, also Serie A and Bundesliga. So much football really coming at you. We have a few weeks before the UEFA Champions League and the European Continental Cups really kick off as well. So a lot on Room 11 coming at you. So make sure that you stay tuned, and also don't forget to download Boom 11 app on Apple App Store and Google Play Store. So that is it from us. Thank you, Abel, for joining us, and thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back again with a lot more football, and probably on the other end, there's a lot happening in cricket as well with Pakistan. I mean, New Zealand touring Pakistan. Kate Williamson is now just a player and not a captain for New Zealand. The Fab Four have all relinquished their captaincy. On India's win in Bangladesh, Australia, and South Africa trying to fight it out because Australia has not won a home series against South Africa in 17 years. So a lot of Test cricket which is happening on the cricket side of things as well. But so we will be coming at you almost every day because that's how sports really is. Thank you guys for joining once again, and until next time, goodbye.
Right.